Good day, welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Let's get to the news in detail. In a recent Reuters article titled Guyana Races Against the Clock to Bank Its Oil Bonanza, Vice President Barra Jagdeo is quoted as saying that the government of Guyana wants to accelerate oil exploration to develop the economy speedily, even if it means Guyana gains less. Notwithstanding calls from the sections of society to not license any new projects for development just yet, Jagdeo is reported in the media on different occasions pushing the oil companies to go faster. According to the Reuters article, Guyana is putting its foot on the gas to exploit its vast oil reserves, even if that means sacrificing some longer-term gains. Jagdeo had argued that calls to halt the developments at the present in order for the country to realize a larger share of its oil revenue sooner would not benefit the country, as it could introduce added inflationary pressures to the country's domestic economy. If established, what can a national oil company do for Guyana in the most useful manner over time? This is perhaps one of the key questions the oil-producing state must consider, says one of the world's leading authorities on national oil companies, Dr. Valerie Marcel. The expert on national oil companies and petroleum sector governance was keen to note that the drivers for establishing such a company are different today from 10 or even 5 years ago. Dr. Marcel said the threshold to justify that investment of public funds is also higher. She added, marketing of the state's share of crude is one useful role in the medium term. The industry expert preferred as well that another might be to leverage the petroleum operations to increase access to clean energy for Guyana. In the medium term, Dr. Marcel said it can be a passive upstream player. In other news, Exxon Mobil is preparing for a new 35-well drilling campaign in the Stabroek Block in a bid to discover more crude off the country's coasts. Recently, government indicated that an independent study conducted by the Food and Agriculture Organization found that oil and gas operations have not caused the noticeable decline in fish catches, but yet another document submitted by Exxon is pointing to impacts on the country's fishery sector. In its most recent project summary for the 35-well exploration project, ESSO said the campaign is likely to impact water quality and disrupt benthic habitats, resulting in a likely migration of such species. It was on Friday last that the EPA uploaded the project summary submitted by Exxon, seeking approval for the offshore activities. In other news, Niklaus Lorenzo Hendricks, a 25-year-old man from Charity Extension Scheme, died during the wee hours of Monday morning during an accident on the Devonshire Castle Public Road. Based on reports, the incident occurred at around 40 hours after midnight on the Essequibo coast. Reports are that Hendricks was the driver of a motor car. A 16-year-old student of Charity Secondary School was also an occupant of the vehicle at the time of the accident. We were told that the duo was returning home from a birthday party, speeding north along the Devonshire Castle Public Road. Police said that while negotiating a turn, the driver lost control and ended up in a nearby trench located on the side of the road. The teenager suffered minor injuries. Just before we head to a short break, let's tell you that radioactive waste materials, if not properly managed, can be a risk to human health and the environment. Exposure to high levels of radioactive substances can lead to severe health problems. Among these are complications of the central nervous system, intestinal lining, cancers, and untimely death. The impacts of radioactive on human life and the environment is now the subject of a local court case filed by residents of Houston on the east bank of Demerara. The residents, who are also described as environmental activists, detailed the fixed date application calling for a court order to quash the U.S.-owned onshore oil and gas company, Schlumberger, to build their radioactive storage facility at Houston. According to the residents, the authorization was granted in absence of evidence on whimsical and capricious grounds which are against the EPA's own policies and without any legal foundation or authority. The time has now moved on to 12 hours 8. We'll take a short break and return with your news.
Did you sound? Heard you got a couple $1 million for me. Summer's gonna be crazy. It's easy like 1, 2, 3. Can't believe all this money for me, money for me. I got to get the CASH. That's the code for the vault, so let's play. Top up with the toes and then the next day you could be a millionaire. But did you sell?
More than 15 million to grab this summer. Top up with $1,000 or more to collect the letters to spell CASH.
For a chance to catch millions in the Digicells Cash Vault.
Top up today.
Did you sell?
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. Let us continue with your news. The International Building Expo 2022 not only seeks to address Guyana's exploding construction sector, but also forms part of the government's strategy to address a backlog of some 50,000 applications for house lots, Minister of Housing and Water Colin Crowell has explained. He made the statement during a walkthrough of the National Stadium facility yesterday, where preparatory works are in full swing for the launch of the July 2nd, that should be the July 22nd to 24th event this weekend. With 11,700 allocations already on the way, at least 5,000 more persons will receive house lots from the ministry over the 3-day period. Crowell said that the demand for housing is greater than supply, so the expo by itself is being used to highlight new technology, equipment and material that are cheaper and durable, while addressing substantial increases in the need for housing facilities. In other news, the 23-year-old construction worker who fatally stabbed Chris Kaieteur Narayan last Wednesday was yesterday remanded to prison after he appeared in court. The defendant, Keon Carr of Lot 190 Parfait Harmony, West Bank, Demerara, was not required to plead to the charge, which alleges that on July 13th he murdered 19-year-old Chris Kaieteur Narayan, called Boyo. He was remanded to prison until August 4th. It was reported that on July 13th, sometime around 16 hours 30, Narayan and his uncle, 23-year-old Ghansham Singh, were going home on one bicycle when the suspect was coming from the opposite direction on an electric bike. According to a police report, Singh said the suspect approached them and launched his attack on his nephew. He reported that he dropped his bicycle and ran away. While he was doing so, he looked back and saw the suspect stabbing his nephew with a pair of scissors and fled the scene. In other news, Kellon Gilbert, a member of the Guyana Police Force, has filed a lawsuit against Harry Gill, advisor to the Minister of Home Affairs, for videotaping him while he was sleeping on duty. In court documents, Gilbert is demanding a public apology from the former parliamentarian and is claiming in excess of $5 million in damages for emotional distress, videotaping him without permission and disseminating same without his consent. Gill on April 20th had caught the lawman, who was protecting his home, sleeping on duty and decided to videotape him. Gill then disseminated the video and it went viral on social media. The policeman, and in his defense, had stated via his lawyer, UC Anderson, that he had been working for 20 hours before falling asleep. And now let's tell you, while Guyana may have several operations on stream for the production of milk and varying meat products, these commodities are still being imported in significant quantities. In fact, Guyana imports $35 million worth of milk products, while for chicken products and mutton, this total $3 million and $10.5 million respectively. The foregoing was captured in the 2022 Agriculture Investment Prospectus. According to the report, it was noted that the main production areas for milk are in the coastal plain, specifically in regions 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It states that there are 519 dairies in operation. We understand that locally produced fresh milk is often marketed directly by the farmers in nearby consumers as raw milk. It was noted that customers routinely boil the milk and consume it daily. And to wrap things up, the Ministry of Health on Monday reported that a 59-year-old woman from Region 4 who tested positive for COVID-19 has died. As a result, the country's COVID-19 death toll has moved to 1,267. The ministry reported that from 299 COVID-19 tests conducted, health authorities within the last 24-hour period recorded 59 new cases across the country. With the time now moving on to 12 hours 14, we wrap things up with the page 7 of today's Kaieteur News. Sugar shortage or management shortage. Guyanese have been finding it hard to get sugar, a commodity we have been producing for decades, owing to significantly low production levels by a corporation that is being propped up for years by the government subsidies. The chief executive officer of that rundown entity, Guy Suko, last week came out in defense of the embarrassment to say that there was no shortage of the sweetener, but rather a shortage of the packaged sugar. He also said that sugar was being smuggled out of the country. Now, if smuggling is allegedly taking place, as he claimed, then it stands to reason that this would contribute to shortages, as stocks meant for local consumption are being moved overseas. The CEO, after almost 2 years in the job, is still trying to find his feet. No one seems to have any confidence in him turning the fortunes of the industry around, and it is believed that it is just a matter of time before he is shown the door. We, like the Guyana Agricultural and General Workers Union, believe heads must roll from the top if that entity is to survive or wean itself off the breast milk of the state. We are in a situation where it is not only just a shortage of sugar, but also a shortage of effective management at that ailing entity. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465